And that is what we are saying. Let's work together to make life sweeter in the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago. In a short, we'll be going live and alive with my co-host Dennise Demming. She's already on the inside. I see her guest is already on the inside. And people, remember, we are going live on Facebook, also live on YouTube. So you can join Dennise on a guest, and you can even join us on Net Radio and Common Radio. So, people, a lot of ways that you can chime in and get in on the program today, people. So, this is just truly RJ. I'm on the inside, live and alive here on Net Radio. So, people, in a short, our friend and my co host, Dennise Demming, she will be on the inside.
Calling all you net radio listeners and fans. It's time to pack your cooler. Join us for Net Radio's Halloween Cooler Crew in red, white, and black. On board the luxurious Island Royalty, Saturday, the 15th of August. Boarding at 7 p.m. from Haircuts Shagaramas. We stay at 8 p.m. sharp. Enjoy great music all night long from your favorite net DJs. Surcharge, CJ, Mr. Flavor, Duck International, RJ, and Fluffman. Early bird tickets are just $200 after $250. Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Bobby's Baccarat, Fast International in Arima, K Square Fashions at C3 Center, West Mall, Eastgate Mall, and all net DJs. No glass bottles allowed. Bring your cooler, bring your crew, and let's celebrate together. Net Radio, Color Week, Cooler Crew. Saturday, August the 15th, aboard the Island Royalty. For information, call 638-2609 or 497-7173. Color Week, on the scene.
Safer communities, greater opportunities, and a better future. Join Dennise Demming every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on NETT Radio for Common Ground TNT. Each week, respected guests tackle the issues affecting our nation, from crime and education to healthcare, the economy, and good governance. Common Ground TNT, finding solutions through conversation. Tuesdays at 11 a.m. on NETT Radio, Net Radio.
Trinidad and Tobago, good morning to you via the world. My name is Richard Jeremiah, aka RJ, and I'm here with my co-host Dennise Demming. Good morning. 1 minute before the 11 o'clock hour, and I'd like to come in early and say good morning to you. What's up, Dennise?
Good morning to you, and it's wonderful to be here. And being 1 minute early is a good sign, because in Trinidad, being 1 minute early is generally not the norm. How do you feel about that?
Well, I have to follow from my elder, or follow from my boss, I should say. Sir Charles always on time, so I try to follow in his footstep and always be on time. Not to cut you in any way, but I see your guest is already here. He was even here so early that he's a man who know time, and I really appreciate that. So what to do? I can bring him up when...
Please do. Please bring him
problem.
up. Yes.
It's over to you, Dennise.
Thank you ever so much, and welcome, Dr. Tiwari. Hope you'll have a wonderful 1 hour with us.
Yeah, well, I look forward to talking with you. If you have a bright, gifted, generally knowledgeable person on the other end, the conversation must go well. So I look forward to talking with you.
That's lovely. And because I know you for so long, and I don't know if you really remember that you impacted my career, when I did my MBA.
Thank you.
And I really, really appreciate that. You're one of those citizens who has made a tremendous difference to our country. And this program that I'm doing, called Common Ground TNT, is just a 1 hour weekly interview with different people. And the objective of it is to bring together voices from all over Trinidad and Tobago about our social issues, our political issues, civic issues, professional landscape, anything to make this country better. So, welcome to Common Ground TMT.
Well, we are on common ground on that.
Lovely. And your career is so amazing that we can talk about all kinds of things. But my interest in having a conversation with you today was really to do with education. And what is your view of our education system at the moment?
Well, the education system um, serves a few, um, and our system does offer a fair amount of academic discipline for those who are so disposed. And our education system, because of how it is connected and rationalized, does establish some standard benchmarks for um, visibility, access, respect internationally. But I think if we know the education system well, whether you talk about primary, secondary, or tertiary, I think that our education system is continues to be highly grounded in rote learning. It continues to create what you might call a context or an environment or the challenge of high stakes anxiety. And thirdly, I don't know if it is adequate in preparing 100% of our children in primary school, in secondary school, in the tertiary sector for meaningful engagement with the world, not just the world of work, but the world of living, the world of transformation, the world of uncertainty. So that is, I think, how I would begin my assessment. I hope it gives us the basis for discussion.
Yeah. My assessment of the education system is that it helps people who have the tertiary level capacity. But the persons who are not tertiary level and who struggle even in primary school, I think the education system needs to look at them a little more and arrange things to help them identify who they are, what they can do. And I think that that's a big area that we need to focus on. What's your response to that?
I agree. I mean, if you look at the primary school system, you have about fully 30% of the cohort in that system that really does not do very well at all. I mean, they get under 50%. They hardly master the basics of core literacy, whether it is in the reading and verbal area or numeracy. And I mean, you cannot, at the age of 12, in a country with 1.4 million people and a very, very low birth rate, sacrifice 30% of your population at that age. So that is a serious problem that we need to take into account. And I will give you, I looked up a couple of things last night, and about 670 students out of a cohort annually of um, about 24.
1800.
No, it's between 18 and 2400.
Okay.
24,000, sorry. 670 get over 90%, which is about, I mean, less than 3% really. And then over 50%, about 70%, we've been improving year by year. So this year, 2026 was pretty good. About 70% get 50%. Um, so you have you have a what you might call a kind of academic oriented elite that is extremely small, that 90% category. You have by and large about 70% of your primary school cohort doing okay. That is to say, average or better than average. And some of them doing fairly well in the 80 and 90% range. But you have a large number who really cannot master the basics of either literacy or numeracy, with implications for future. And I think that is what we have to worry about. I think the government, both the last one and this one, are focused on trying to find out where the problems are, that is to say, with schools, and where the students are who need extra help. And they are trying to do something about it. But that raises another question. Um, do we need to make these children or to force them to be better for the system that we have? Or do we need to create a system that is more supportive and facilitative of the very varied and uneven talents of, let's say, a cohort of 20,000 every year who are born into the society, and give them a better chance of coping with the world? And I think those would be the hard or the big questions.
You talked about numeracy and literacy. What is the data about that?
Well, most people, um, a lot of people, over 50%, do badly in mathematics, right? So what that tells me is that there's a problem in disposition in the students when they come in. It tells me that there's a problem of teaching, um, what can I say, deficit when they come into the schools. That is to say, teachers might know mathematics, but they might not be able to teach it well to students who are not um, easily disposed to um, mathematical absorption. I could talk about that because I had a lot of problems in secondary school grasping algebra and geometry. It took me a while before I could get a grasp of that. The arithmetic in primary school was easy, and I did very, very well. But when I came to algebra, especially, and geometry, because those things have other dimensions, which are spatial dimensions and conceptual level thinking that you don't need to apply in primary school. So I think the teaching, the disposition, and more than that, the whole framework of mathematics teaching, we need to kind of rethink and overhaul and manage, because not everybody can be taught in the same way. And we have a problem too on the linguistic or verbal side. And I think that has to do with the way we teach English in the early stage. We teach them to read, to understand comprehension. We teach them to write. We teach them a little creative writing. But we don't teach them, how to really grasp ideas and thought and to wrestle with some of the ideas and to argue and to make sense of the reading as something meaningful in your life, which is what, by the way, literature is about and why it's so important. Um, and I think, again, there too, the teaching and the disposition towards reading and writing, I think those two things are also important. You see, if we were able to master the literacy and numeracy component of early education, I think it would help a lot in allowing for people to gravitate to and grasp a variety of learning and life opportunities later on. Because what um, poor literacy does, whether it's on the mathematical side or the verbal and reading side, is that it limits you, it limits your horizons, it limits your confidence, it limits your desire to even consider a choice. You see? So I think we need to understand that if we don't handle education right in the earlies, you are really creating a societal liability and a problem later. It's not about individuals being bright or dunce. It's not about individuals being capable or not capable. You have to see this now as a human resource asset base, which you must nurture and cultivate for country viability, sustainability, and competitiveness. And if you value each human being like that, I think we will have a better approach to education.
And that is a fantastic statement. And what has popped into my mind is, given what is happening with AI, and so many people are just using the internet, they're using AI to just get solutions and get answers. But for you to do that, you need to at least be able to read and write. And if
Yes.
reading and writing has a lower ability or a lower number of people doing it, then what is going to be our future? You know?
And yeah, it's a real problem. Listen, this business of how we transform in education, we're talking about primary now because primary is like the basic fundamental building block level. I mean, you have preschool, right? And in my notion, I mean, and I could say this from the experience of my own children, when we, who are big men and women and professional people now, but I mean, the kind of preschool education we facilitated for them was really a preschool education in which the emphasis was not on any kind of formal education. It was mostly play, engagement of the other children, doing things together, building things, involved in creative things, self-expression, um, building confidence, being able to ask questions, those kinds of things, you see. And that's early foundation of education and how you manage it. I mean, like in some countries, in Germany, for instance, they don't really teach people to read until they are nearly 7 or 8, you know. So if you get them to read early, that can be an advantage, but it can also be a disadvantage. If you get them to read late, you might think it's a disadvantage, but it depends on what you did before. You see? So any system, in my view, can work and work well. And if you put a lot of thought into it, and I think these things relate to the culture and so on too. I mean, everything begins with the home, the household, the family. I think we need to think about those things. If you have a child coming from a middle class, forget economics. Just think of environment, right? If you have a child coming from a middle class home, right? Think of that child. The child goes to sleep in a decent bed. They get up in the morning. They get guidance from the parents or somebody to make sure they address hygiene issues. They then have their clothes prepared. They're ready. They're gone. They go to school. They know that they are going to school in order to achieve certain things. They come back home in the evening. They have that cycle. And basically, they're operating in what you might call a bubble of comfort, right?
Mm.
And a bubble of reasonable motivation. If you have a child in which where you sleep might be anywhere in the place, right? Whether you get dinner depends on the circumstances of that day. Um, whether you have electricity depends on whether you were able to pay a light bill. Uh, whether you have water depends on whether WASA provided water for you that day. Uh, you have a lot of noise outside all the time. You really closing your window in the night doesn't make any difference. You don't have control over the environment. You don't know what, and that child goes to school. That is a very, very different psychological dimension to cope with for a child of that kind. So I think, we need to take these things into account. In other words, I'm calling for a more holistic view of the approach to education. We can't fix all the problems one time. But I can say, if you look at the children in preschool and primary school as a human capital asset base for competitiveness, innovation, and achievement as a society, and if you look at 450,000 households, which is what we have based on the 2011 census. I don't know what's happening with the census. It's nearly 15 years now.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but according to the last census, let me say it's 500. And you have 500,000 households, and you don't really have to look after 500,000. Let's say you have to look after about 150,000, right? I mean, these things are not unmanageable things, man. How much schools we have? We have about 400 primary schools. We have 360,000 people, children under the age of 16, I think, under the age of 18, I think, in the secondary school system. In other words, what I'm saying, when you have a small country, even with limited resources, you have a more manageable problem than a country like China or India with 1.4 billion people, So the problem of scale works for us. And what we need is a little more thought, a little more diligence, a little more caring, a little more futuristic understanding of how today feeds into tomorrow, And I don't feel we conduct our conversations like that. And therefore we end up in stupid conversations. Stupid conversations, not because people are stupid, but because we imprison ourselves by what we discuss, because we spend a lot of time discussing what are essentially the wrong things.
Yes. And we're not spending enough time discussing how do we need to transform the preschool system for children? Does it exist? Because that 150,000 children who come from a high level of poverty and may not be living in a proper place, they may not have water, they may not have electricity, and so on. How are
Yeah.
we managing those children? How are we ensuring that when those children go to school, they experience something that helps them to redefine who they are and
Well,
rediscover who they are?
I
You know,
think
and
I think there's a I think there's an important um, issue, and um, in order to avoid getting into again one of the stupid things we discuss in this society, I want to say that those 150 households are both urban and rural. Okay, so it's across the board in this society. It is a problem that needs to be addressed from a human point of view and from a statistical point of view and from a point of view of economic inequality and deprivation rather than from the kind of way we talk about it, which is, where they live in and, what ethnicity they are and so on. I mean, these things are really, I don't know why people don't understand that these things more and more are going to become less and less relevant. And the survival of the human race really is at stake, and the survival of societies are at stake. And, you know, yes, to answer, give a short answer to your question, those 150,000 households need special care and attention, not because we like them, not because we care so much about them, not because it is a problem we need to solve because it might end up feeding the crime system, etc. All of which are true, right? All of which could be true. But because these people who come from the 150,000 households that are relatively poor compared to the rest of the society and relatively deprived, and some of them badly deprived, they have human assets that are worth nurturing and supporting to triumph and do their best, not just for themselves, but for our society and for our national well being. And I think if we looked at that, we could see it as a different kind of problem.
And are we looking at it like that? Are we trying to ask ourselves what needs to be done, to
No, we
counter?
create a problem. We create a larger problem from a problem, which is why we end up in so many controversies. We are not solution focused and oriented, unfortunately. Um, but yes, we need to look at it in terms of what is the solution we need, and we have all the material. And we have this census. When I was Minister of Planning, we did together with the UNDP a Human Development Atlas that looks at every region of Trinidad and Tobago and identifies all the things that are right and wrong with them. So let's say you go to Mayari, you know how many people unemployed, you know how many people living under $3,000 a month or whatever it is. Um, you know where they're living, right? You know what industries you have there. You know what assets you have there, whether a fire station, whether a hospital, health center, whatever. So it is possible, and today with GIS, I mean, all these things can be mapped out, right? So, I mean, we have the data. We have the data. And when you break it down in regions like that, right, we're talking about 150,000 households. Let's break it down now by 14 regions in Trinidad. We ain't going to Tobago yet. Tobago have 60,000 people, which is 15,000 households, right? And you have, I don't know how many communities, maybe about 20 of them that you could like sub communities. But let's just say in Trinidad, in Trinidad you have 14 regions, 150,000 households. You take that, what is that? Let me divide by, that is about 10,000, 11,000 households a region. Oh God, that is not a problem. You know,
But it is a problem for us because we haven't even started to work on it. We've not
but
even started.
why don't they think about the solution in the way that I'm articulating it?
Yeah.
You see, when you take that big problem and you break it up into 14 small problems like that, right? And the numbers are lesser because I took the number 150 and I divided by 14 and I left out Tobago. So in some areas it might be 8,000 households. You know, in some areas it might be six because of the condition of that region. You know, in some it might be 12. You know, but what I mean is that it's manageable. You know, it's manageable. You know, and all the problems could be solved. The health and well-being problems which you need. One of the problems with education now and all these people that we set up for failure, because the failures in the education system, is, these are not individual failures, you know. I mean, you can think of it like that because you have to take personal responsibility and say every child really should take responsibility for their own welfare and well-being and so on. And every parent should play a role. But when a system is failing so many people at once at every level, um, then it's a failure of the system, right? So if you look at the problems like that, and if you dissect the problems and make them smaller, we can begin to do the transformation. And you, instead of trying to transform the whole system one time, in every area, if you go to the schools, let's say a region has 12 schools or something. Some of the schools might be good and some of them not so good and some of them poor. So that allows you to to structure, you know, in a certain way and devise what you might call specialized approaches to some of these problems in the schools. And when you trace that back to the home, all right, it's not going to be everybody in the same position. So, you know, you can begin to do that. You have social welfare arrangements, you have disability issues that you have to deal with. You know, some of the things might be basic, like the children not having a glasses or, you know, things like that. And um, what I'm saying, Denise, is that when you have a country of 1.4 million people, 450 or 500 households, and an inequality in a situation where 150,000 household needs undivided attention, it is not is not rocket science to solve. And if you, I think Trinidad and Tobago have enough bright people who could make themselves a little brighter by being a little more conscientious about the issue of social responsibility. And we could go community by community and solve some of these problems.
That's an excellent thought, but I am not seeing how it is going to happen. And it is because I am not.
You have, all right, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just saying what I am hoping for our country is to have some kind of objective, some kind of mission, some kind of statement that I can live with and say, well, all right, for us to do that, we have to work on the education system. For us to do that, we have to ensure that the children who go to primary schools, they come out with a certain kind of approach that they can make a difference. So when they move from primary school to secondary school, they move with the right kind of thinking, they move with a comfortable background and all of that. And it's not that everybody will get that because we have issues, but I need to know what is the overall mission or vision that we have. And that to me is a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, we need an overarching vision for this. I mean, we used to say no child left behind, right? But clearly we leave in plenty behind. right? So, and the irony of leaving plenty behind when we say no child left behind is that we have structured leaving them behind because the structure of the system insists that this is the repeated performance year after year. All right. So you can't just say no child left behind, right? You
Yes.
have to now say those that we are leaving behind and we can identify them by household, by school, by individuals' performance, right? Let us see what is the solution for that. And take what I just said. If you address that problem by household, by school, by individual performance, don't you think we could solve that, Denise? Really?
I I think we will solve it. And one of my positive thoughts about education in our country is my own history. And this is many, many years ago. I grew up in Quarry Street. And Quarry Street is a very poor area. You know, I lived in
Yeah,
Quarry Street
I
when I
know
was
the area.
15
Yeah.
years and all of that. And despite that, I've lived a very good life, and I've lived a good life because of education. And that I don't understand what has transformed. So that what we have now is a lot of people coming out of school, they're leaving school early. A lot of our young men are leaving school early, and you're finding them involved in banditry items, banditry
We
things.
have that's the other thing. We have a problem with the males. We've known that for a long time. And we also have to pay particular attention to the males. Something is wrong there, right? We've tried all kinds of things with them, right? Mylat and I don't know, whatever courses, YTEP, and clearly they're not working, right? Okay, so we need to find another way. And I don't know what the solution is. I'll be quite frank with you. But I think that we can't deal with it as a mass problem. That much I have concluded. You can't have a national problem to solve this problem. What you have to do is the way that I'm suggesting. Home by home, community by community, school by school, child by child, right? The micro is better than the macro. Make the macro out of the micro. You could have a macro problem after you begin the solution at the micro level working upwards. And then you design the structure, etc. So this is a ground up kind of strategy that is necessary to solve the problem. So while you have your state of emergency and while you're thinking of how to deal with particular communities that are under crime pressure, if you want to call it that, and while you want to protect the rest of the society that is not yet, for use of another word, for not knowing a better word, quote unquote, contaminated. You want to keep the rest of the society protected from what exists in certain parts. While you want to do all of these things as partial solutions, you have to look at the longer view too. All right. And let's take a whole generation of people over, let's say, 20 years and make sure they don't go in that direction. And you could do it in the way that I'm suggesting, but you have to pay attention and you have to bring public and private sector into this. You have to bring NGOs into this, and you have to get communities to take responsibility over this as well. And you begin to empower the household and increase the responsibilities that are taken up as real responsibilities in the household. But you see, you have to look at certain things too. I mean, if you have households that have no male figure, you have women who are not working and who do not have an income. I mean, you have a real problem. So, if you look at it at the household level, you would have to solve some of those problems. If you have a two person household with a male and a female or whatever configuration you have, you want to make sure that at least somebody could go out and make a living somehow. And there are ways of doing that. You could skill people later in life if they don't have no skills. You can create industries that come to the home, all right, rather than you go out to work. I mean, they have a whole set of industries like that in Italy, for instance. I always use the remarkable story of God, I forget what is the name of the company now. But what they do is they go in these communities, they train the women, right, to sew and to design and all these kinds of things. They give them a quota for the week or whatever they work whenever they can, in the night, in the morning. They do their business with the children, they organize everything. And then at the end of the week, on a given day, they come, they collect their stuff in a van and they go on about their business. They check the quality and then they brand them and they sell them all over the world at a very high price. You know, so there are things that you can do. And now that we are going into a digital future, and digitalization is a necessity, really, I don't see how we can avoid it. Um, I think that we should also think about how we might do things like that because, I mean, the people are not stupid, they are uneducated, they are deprived, right? So they can be schooled, they can be trained, they can learn things. And we need to begin to the problem is thinking. The problem is thinking, really. Let me tell you something. The Yes, some days ago, Valmiki Arjun, who is an economist at the University of the West Indies, posted something. He had gone to the University of Liechtenstein, I think, and he had spent a couple of days there. Liechtenstein have 40,000 people, that is less than Tobago, and they have a per capita income. I don't know what it is, must be $80,000 a year or something, right? It's one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They have everything. They landlocked and they have everything. It's a very wealthy country. You could go and look it up. And he posted something about what he did there and what they're doing and things. And I asked the question, we should look at Liechtenstein and say, if you have 40,000 people, what do you have to do? What did they do to get a per capita income of 80,000, right? All right, and see whether that is doable in a place like Trinidad and Tobago or anywhere else, Grenada or whatever. You could then look at a place like Tobago and say, you have 60,000 people. What do you need to do to get a middle class life for 15,000 households, right? Which is not a far-fetched idea. It can be done. Because I've been to Bermuda, and Bermuda have, I don't know how much they have. I think they have 60 or 80,000 people. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But they have a high per capita income and they're doing well and everybody happy. And they travel 3 and 4 times a year and go and enjoy life, right? So it's not a European thing because right here in the Caribbean, a country has done it. So I think it's the way you look at things. Instead of saying, oh God, how do you develop Grenada? We don't have no resources except tourism, right? How are we going to get developed? Well, you do certain things. Grenada brought a university to Grenada, offshore university. It contributes 25% to the GDP and complements the tourism product. That is, they are then able to spin off of that and enhance the tourism product. So the question is not how do you develop Grenada, but how do you take a country of 110,000 people, okay, 25,000 or 27,000 households, and make it a middle class country living in comfort and leisure and freedom, right? And that is the question. So we need to ask the right questions about these things. So the answers to that will be things like education, how you manage the tourism product, how you manage the destinations you get tourism from, what you do with the money that you earn for local development, national development. How do you create the condition for opportunities inside the country, so on and so on. So I think that we've been asking the wrong question, the macroeconomic view that we've been taking. I don't want to dismiss it because I myself do it too. You have to take a big picture view, but you also have to take another kind of view. You have to take a micro view, and you have to find a way of making household development, community development, regional development, and macro national development connect with each other to make development happen.
And this is a beautiful thought that you have. It makes a lot of sense. How do you see that happening? Because I am not seeing regional structures in our country. I am not seeing any approach to development of different regions, of analyzing them, of saying, what is the school system here? What is the transportation system here? How do we get the children to participate in things? I am not seeing that. So how do we transform our regions?
Well, I mean, I think you have to start country by country, all right, because you can't start macro, because, I mean, there are enough problems there. Macro regional, I mean. You have to start country by country. And then you have to have certain things that you want to achieve for the region. And let me tell you something. This Caribbean region is going to become, it already is. It's just that we don't understand it. These are really important region of the world. And for any international decisions that have to be made, the Caribbean is going to be pivotal in those sets of decision making. But we have also become intellectually backward in the engagement of the world. That's part of our problem. There was a time when the thought of C.L.R. James made a difference in world engagement. There was a time when, what's his name, who helped develop the whole Pan-African, Sylvester, from Trinidad, when his thought made a difference in the world. There was a time, I mean, even in the early days, all right, when we made a difference in relation to developing country thinking, made a difference in terms of thinking about where the world was headed, made a difference in terms of anti-colonial thinking. We're getting a chance again, because the debate over who owes who for reparations is coming up. And there is a kind of debate that is emerging in which right-wing white nationalist elements in the world are saying that developing countries had their chance and they can't govern themselves. And what we need is to re-imperialize and recolonize the developing countries, and the imperial countries need to re-imperialize their vision. And all of this is built around the immigration debate and so on. So that kind of discussion is going to come up again in the world, but we have to be ready for it. And we have to be ready to talk about it, and we can't talk about it in the same way. All right? The old learnings of history are not going to be enough. The old articulations of historical position are not going to be enough. And I think there is need for innovation and thought over all of these things. But believe you me, they're coming up. Because the re-imperialism, the recolonization, the reparations debate, and who responsible for who, and who can't govern themselves, and who governing well. And these are people talking in era in which the whole world is chaos because of leadership at the industrialized country level. But these things are coming up. So, with all of these issues that are coming up of identity, immigration, racism, reparations, technology, the digital economy, and how you engage it, because at the at the center of all of this is, will your country, will your people have freedom? Will your people have democracy? Will your people have a good quality of life? Will your country have sovereignty? And what would that sovereignty mean? And what would identity mean in that kind of world? All of those things, let us not let them happen by guess. Let us not let somebody else decide what we should think and what we should absorb and what we should, what can I say, accept, embrace. All right? And all of these things that I'm raising with you, Dennise, come back to your school system. It also comes back to your teaching fraternity and capacity. If you have teachers with old ideas who don't want to learn and who not interested in adapting and changing and making the necessary intellectual and psychological and emotional shifts, you're not going to change education, you know. All
But
right?
the
And
bottom
you can't
line,
solve it by importing teachers. Huh?
the bottom line is that we have to change some of our systems. And
We have what?
we have to change,
Yes,
transform some of our systems, structures, processes. So for instance,
that's right.
looking at teachers and trying to redefine what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're supposed to do. That is a challenge. And I am not seeing where we're transforming that. So it seems to me as if we're not heading towards a transformation of our country.
Well, I will agree with you, but I will also agree that we cannot allow ourselves to be stuck there. We have to do something about it. Listen, if we talk about a world of sustainability, right? Think of that word sustainability and think of the concept of sustainable development. Has any country in the world achieved sustainable development? No. Has the world achieved sustainable development? No. So, sustainable development is an experiment in motion, right?
Mhm.
And we have some ideas about what constitutes it, and we are working towards it, but it has not been achieved anywhere, so there is no precedent, right? So if we're working towards something that seems desirable, but we really don't have all the answers, and there is no blueprint, there is no precedent, then the only way you can get there is by experimentation and innovation, right? If you need innovation to make sustainable development happen, you need a certain kind of thinking. You need critical thinking which looks at the world as it is and say to it, this is okay, but there is a better way and I must find it, right? You need to have creative thinking and look at what people are doing and say they are doing it well. But I think this could be even better. And you creatively look at that and design something that improves the intervention or whatever it is. And the most important thing, you are now living in a sustainable development desired world in which AI is the driver and everybody trying to be quantum ready quick. All right? There are lots of things that you could say about AI, but from my little experience of AI, what I find about AI is this. AI has the capacity to draw on multiple sources of knowledge that it is impossible for one single human mind to draw from and synthesize it in a way that no human mind can, because the starting point for the AI are a greater number of multiple sources of knowledge. Okay? So what AI has is synthesis capacity. Now, how can you deal with that synthesis capacity without yourself as a human being having some powerful cognitive capacity of your own? So not just critical thinking and creative thinking, but you have to have discernment at the highest possible level. You need it now like you never needed it before, because it's not you against other human beings. It is not you against the world as it is coming at you. It is you and AI with a synthesis capacity that you could never master, that you could never achieve, right? So the only thing you have is that capacity for discernment. And ultimately, that is what we need to get in the education system. And I have just used two things, which is sustainable development is a big thing, and the AI quantum readiness issue, to show you how much transformation needs to take place. Now, it need not take place all at once. It need not take place in a whole system. But it can take place subject by subject.
Subject by subject. And I totally agree and hear that. And we have just about 10 more minutes to go. And here's my challenge with what you're saying, because you've given us some excellent ideas for the last almost an hour. If you could make a difference, what would you create to begin that transformation?
I would have to start. I think what we should start with is English and mathematics at the primary school level, right? To begin to make that transformation. I think at the preschool level, we should look carefully at what should constitute a kind of universal with some flexibility for individual institutions. For preschoolers, I would say up to the age of 5, that would give them confidence, self-confidence, the ability to speak, to engage, all of those things, because you want to take them into the school with a different kind of readiness, right, in this primary school system. So I would say that for there. At the secondary school system, I think in addition to mathematics and English, I think you would have to take a transformative view, or what, if you want to call it, a relook at history, right? I think you would want to read literature differently. And I think that you would want to deal with integrated science in a way that makes sense for the world that we are entering now, right? So what I've mentioned is a preschool rethink, mathematics and English for the primary level. And basically, in addition to that, for the secondary level, history, literature, and the sciences. And then I would look at the question of what do we learn things and study things for, if not for solutions. And I would then begin that applications process for all the things that we study in the curriculum and redesign the curriculum in that way. I think this is a long, drawn out process that we need to begin systematically. And once you begin in one area, it's going to impact on others. They will not remain isolated, and they would not, they cannot help but be inter-impactive. And I feel that that is how we need to begin to do it. And we need to do it level by level. And we need to test the experiment school by school to see what is happening. And because of the system that we have here of measurement and the seminal role in our culture of examinations, the entire examination system is going to have to be transformed with it. All right? So in a way, thinking about a measurement system for the things that you want to inculcate in a population in transformation might be even more important than beginning the redesign of the curriculum. So I understand that I am raising a range of complexities here, and that make it seem kind of mountainous and maybe undoable and too hard and unachievable. But I am saying to you that there is no choice. We can't go into 2050 with this kind of education system. I mean, we are going to be a set of little animals in the zoo. The world will have gone, right? So we can't do that. So the question is, how do we make the process? And we can begin by, first of all, acknowledging that we need to do something. Secondly, acknowledging that what we have, you can't just throw it away just so it does serve a purpose. Thirdly, accept that there are things wrong with it which we need to address, right? Even in the current world that we live in. And then fourthly, we need to begin to look at where the world is headed and what are the things that are critical and how we need now to begin the process of transformation in different ways for different things so that we get somewhere where we can end up with a decent life, a decent quality of life, the capacity to cope in the world, etc. We might be near to closing time, and I don't want to close without saying this. Let me tell you something. 50 years from now, there are going to be few places, if we do not destroy this part of the world, that are going to be as beautiful as the Caribbean. We have oceans all around us. We have sunshine 365 days a year with a little rain, right? We have beautiful landscape, right? We could live under the trees if we choose to, right? We could hang up a hammock and live there, right? We have other problems, all the problems of climate change and coastal erosion and so on and so on. But we know what those problems are, and we have solutions, we could make solutions. We have disaster, we deal with it. Trinidad and Tobago is largely protected. We have not had a hurricane for 100 years.
Yeah.
And other countries, I mean, they could deal with it. So my own feeling is that The vision you need is to see that, first of all, this place is special, and nothing that will happen over the next years, over the next 25 years to 2050, is going to change how beautiful this place is if we manage the sustainable development elements of it and don't destroy it ourselves, right? Having said that, what are the things we need to do to make ourselves a middle class, prosperous, more equal society with equitable opportunities, shared prosperity, if you want to call it that? I like that phrase. I've used it since about 2011. I've used that phrase, shared prosperity. I gave it to the Colombians,
So,
and they
Dr.
used it.
Tiwari, they will end our conversation if we don't end it. So, what is your learning for today?
My learning for today is that yes, we have plenty problems, but there are real solutions that we need to put our mind to, and that we can come up with them. And instead of trying solving everything at once, pick a sequence of things that are most important, and let's do them together.
Thank you ever so much, Dr. Tiwari. And I am taking away that what we need is what is that strategy, and we need to identify the places where we will begin, learn, and then continue. Thank you ever so much, and I look forward to chatting with you again. So, Common Ground TNT, look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. All the best. Goodbye.
Bye.
Well, all right. To my co-host Dennise Demming and Dr. Tiwari, thank you for being here. It's a little way past my news, so I may quickly go. So, Dennise, next week, wonderful program as always. We're gonna meet up next week, God's willing.
All the best. Bye.
What do we all want for Trinidad and Tobago? Safer communities, greater opportunities, and a better future. Join Dennise Demming every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on NETT Radio for Common Ground TNT. Each week, respected guests tackle the issues affecting our nation, from crime and education to
the news you need, the clarity you deserve. Local, regional, global. This is Net Radio News Now.
This is News Now on Net Radio and Guile TV. I am Derek McMillan. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar is defending Trinidad and Tobago's support for U.S. strikes on suspected drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean, saying legal advice received by the government does not classify the fatalities as murders. Speaking at the close of the CARICOM summit in St. Lucia, Persad-Bissessar said local investigations have found no evidence that Trinidad and Tobago nationals were among those killed, and stressed the government would act based on the rule of law. CARICOM Chairman Philip J. Pierre said the region remains concerned about the reported loss of life and is still awaiting information from the United States. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley described the issue as legally and geopolitically complex, adding that, while countries have the right to respond to threats, she would prefer solutions that avoid loss of life. Police say the investigation into the death of 7-year-old Angelica Jogi could be completed by the end of this week. Senior Superintendent Rodhill Kirk said investigators have carried out directions from the Director of Public Prosecutions after submitting the case file in April. The DPP is now expected to decide whether any charges should be laid. Angelica died after being struck by a jet ski while swimming at Pigeon Point Beach in Tobago on April 8. The incident prompted the passage of the Tobago Marine Park Bill, which is now awaiting further review before being debated in Parliament. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is reminding event promoters that they are responsible for managing activities at public events and ensuring all license conditions are followed. Speaking at a media briefing, ASP Russell Owie said police officers are deployed to fetes to maintain public safety, while organizers must ensure performances run on schedule and comply with court-approved closing times to prevent disputes. The comments follow the arrest of 5 Silver Stars Steel Orchestra players after a confrontation with police at Tribe's band launch. OE said the TTPS respects the steel pan community, but because the matter is now before the courts, the police service will not comment further at this time. In some good news, a Presentation College Chaguanas student has been selected to represent Trinidad and Tobago at the prestigious 2026 National Youth Science Camp in West Virginia, USA. Kavir Monbode, a lower sixth student and aspiring doctor, is the country's sole participant in the 3-week STEM program, which runs from July 11th to August 1st. He says he hopes to pursue a career in medicine because of his passion for biology and helping others. Kavir, who is also a National Youth Ambassador and STEM Award winner, thanked the U.S. Embassy and NIHurst for the opportunity. His mother described him as self-driven and said she is proud of his achievements and dedication to science and innovation. Also, the legacy of the late Sundar Popo is set to reach a new international audience, with a remixed version of his iconic hit, Kaise Bani, featured in the Bollywood comedy Dhamal 4, which opens in local cinemas on July 16th. The new version is performed by Neil Kamal Singh and Mamta Sharma, with rapper Dheeraj Babuan and music producer Aditya Dev. The singers say the energetic remake is a perfect fit for the comedy film. Originally released in 1969, Popo's classic Faluri Bina Chutney Kaise Bani became one of the most recognizable chutney songs and has been remade several times over the years, cementing the Trinidad and Tobago music legend's lasting influence on Indian and Caribbean music. Finally, the conflict between the United States and Iran has escalated again, with both countries exchanging fresh strikes as tensions continue in and around the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. says it struck 90 Iranian military targets, including coastal defense and military infrastructure, while Iran says the attacks killed at least 14 people. Tehran responded with strikes targeting U.S. assets in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar, and later reported attacks on sites in Jordan and Iraq. Meanwhile, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has dropped sharply amid the renewed fighting, raising concerns over global energy supplies. The latest violence comes as thousands gathered in Mashhad for the burial of Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, with both Washington and Tehran trading sharp warnings over the future of any peace talks. And that is Net Radio News at this time.
That was news now. Stay informed with New Era TT Radio. Net Radio.
Welcome to Inside the Net on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio. Our daily insights as we count down the journey to FIFA World Cup 2026. Here is today's insight.
The FIFA World Cup is more than a football tournament. It is a stage where history is written. Every 4 years, millions of supporters witness moments that go far beyond the final score. Some become symbols of sporting excellence. Others spark debate, inspire change, or alter the future of football itself. Few moments captured the world's imagination like Brazil's triumph in 1970. Led by Pelé, that team showcased a style of football built on creativity, teamwork, and flair. Their performances inspired coaches and players around the globe, influencing how future generations approached the beautiful game. Not every unforgettable moment came through celebration. At the 1986 FIFA World Cup, Diego Maradona scored the famous Hand of God goal against England. Just minutes later, he produced the breathtaking solo effort known as the Goal of the Century. 2 goals, one controversial, one magnificent. Together, they became among the most discussed moments in football history and demonstrated how a single match could leave a lasting legacy. The World Cup has also influenced the way football is officiated. Controversial decisions over the years, including Frank Lampard's disallowed goal for England against Germany in 2010, renewed calls for technological assistance. Those debates eventually contributed to the wider adoption of goal line technology and later the use of the video assistant referee, better known as VAR. The tournament has also united nations through unforgettable achievements. When South Africa hosted the FIFA World Cup in 2010, it became the first African nation to stage the competition. It was more than a sporting milestone. It was a celebration of football's global reach and a moment of pride for an entire continent. Every generation has its defining World Cup memory. A goal, a save, a celebration, a heartbreak, or a decision that changed the game forever. As FIFA World Cup 2026 approaches, the next chapter is waiting to be written. Somewhere on the pitches of Canada, Mexico, and the United States, another moment will capture the imagination of billions and become part of football history. Because the FIFA World Cup doesn't simply reflect the evolution of football, it helps shape it. This has been Inside the Net, Road to FIFA World Cup 2026 Insights.
You've been listening to Inside the Net as we count down the journey to FIFA World Cup 2026 on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.